And now for the Honorable Member, Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vickram Bharrat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was the very tone and promises made by the APNU-AFC in their 2015 campaign. And what did the people of Guyana got? What did the people of Guyana enjoy? Nothing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, in this House and in this country, it is no crime to pluck figures out of thin air, to make fake promises, and to seemingly make recommendations that are being implemented by the government of the day. And for some reason or the other, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Shawrin Holder and the Honorable Ramsarup seems to be locked away in a cocoon. When I listen to their recommendations, these are the very projects that are being implemented by the People's Progressive Party civic government. So I'm wondering if they're really following what is happening in this country or not. But like I said, Mr. Speaker, it is easy to make fake promises, like they did in 2015. And then from 2015 to 2020, we went backwards instead of moving forward. Again, in 2025, they will come with those fake promises. They will come with those fake promises of 400,000 threshold, of 80,000 pension. But these are the people who took away the cash grant from the students. These are the people who added VAT and light and water in this country. These are the people who added VAT on education and health services in this country. But yet you come to the National Assembly with all these lofty promises and recommendations that we will manage this sector and that we will ensure that the oil money reaches down to the people. Well, Mr. Speaker, we are doing that. The People's Progressive Party Civic is doing that. And we will continue to do that in President Ali's second term in office after the 2025 election. Mr. Speaker, in these debates, it is fair for both sides to compare track records, to compare and to contrast track records. Like the Honorable Member did, he spoke very glowingly of the achievements under the APNU-AFC government, but he stopped short. He stopped short in many fronts. Bauxite, for example, the production in 2024, 1.7 million tons. And then he said, oh, the production in 2019 to 2018 was very high. It could have been higher. It could have been higher if they didn't mismanage the situation with Rusal. If they didn't mismanage the situation with Rusal in the Berbice River, which cost almost 1,000 Guyanese, mostly in Kokwani, Aichuni, the Berbice River, and New Amsterdam, their jobs, and the livelihood of their families. That is what he stopped short to say. Mr. Speaker, he spoke a lot on gold, but what he didn't say, he said 5 years, but what he didn't say is that the highest production for gold was in 2016. But if you truly understand how the sector works, the work was done before 2016. The work was done by the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration, so that production could have been high in 2016, in 2017, and in 2018. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party in ensuring that the Aurora gold mine was established and started to produce. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party civic government to ensure that Troy Resources invested and they started to produce. And that is what he's boasting of. That is what he's boasting of, Mr. Speaker. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration. Mr. Speaker, so I too today would like to compare and contrast based on our track records, based on the experiences, so that the Guyanese people can be the judge for themselves, so that the people looking at these debates would be able to analyze and will be able to ascertain for themselves whether the People's Progressive Party Civic is good for this country or whether we are going back to the fake promises from the AP and UAFC. Fake promises from a group of people who all want to be president or presidential candidates, whose relationship is on life support. How would you vote for a political coalition that is on life support, Mr. Speaker?
Life support.
Life support.
Life support.
And before that switch is turned off, the People's Progressive Party Civic will be back in government for another term in office. So you can continue to be on life support because the people will be the judge.
Out with the life support people.
Mr. Speaker,
Life support.
let's compare and let's contrast. And let me say to the Guyanese people who deserve to know how the revenue garnered from the natural resources sector is being spent and managed in this country. Because they have a right to know. Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back because when we speak about the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s, we often hear, oh, I wasn't born then. I didn't know about that. And Mr. Speaker, just like how the opposition are creating AI speeches, they can use the internet to go on Google and see what happened in the 60s and the 70s and in the 80s and the hardship imposed on Guyanese by the PNC. Whether it's AFC, whether it's APNU, whether it's whatever name, it is the PNC. It is the PNC. And the leader of the PNC is indeed a very hardcore, diehard PNC leader. Those who are trying to be presidential candidates from other parties, they came out of that very PNC. And they are trying to do the same too. So, Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back. I will just go to 2015. I will go to 2015 since the young electorates were born then. I will not go back to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. Even though we fail to realize that the PNC, regardless of what they call themselves, they had governed this country for 32 years in office, plus 1 year squatting. Plus 1 year squatting, which takes you to 33. The PPP, Mr. Speaker, is 23 plus 4. 23 plus 4. We haven't done as yet. 23 plus 4. It is 32 plus 1 year of squatting after the no confidence motion and trying to rig the elections in 2020. So, Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back. I will go to 2015. And I won't even go to the old manifesto because all the stars and the moon will disappear from the sky because that is what they promise. So I will go to the 100-day plan. I will go to the 100-day plan of the AP and UAFC, just like how the Honorable Mr. Holder read from his properly prepared AI, I don't know if it's AI speech, or his properly prepared AI speech, fanciful recommendations and fake promises. That is what they will come to the electorates with. 400,000 threshold, $1 million cash grant from the Honorable Cox. Good luck, my brother. Apparently you have no idea as to the revenue earnings of our country because it would simply make our country bankrupt. And we'll be unable to do anything, regardless of whether it's infrastructure, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education that you're in, or any other service. We'll be a bankrupt country once we follow your policy, Honorable Cox, and the policy of the AP and UAFC. 100-day plan, Mr. Speaker, this is 2015. 9 years ago only 9 years ago, by this opposition that comes to the parliament with the fanciful promises and recommendation. Number one, and there's so many. I may need some assistance here, Mr. Speaker. There's so many, but yet none was achieved. Mr. Speaker, the first one, reduction in the Barbies Bridge toll. Reduction in the Barbies Bridge toll, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what they should say is who built the Barbies River Bridge. It under the People's Progressive Party civic government. And Mr. Speaker, I said this before in one of my budget presentations while we were in the opposition, that yes, the Barbies Bridge toll was reduced from $2,200 to $1,900 because I'm a Barbician, I know. From $2,200 to $1,900 under the AP and UFC. But what did they do? Most of the vehicles leaving Region 6, they are going to the Cherry Jagan International Airport. So while they were reducing there by $300, the parking fees at the airport increased from $200 to $500. From $200 to $500 almost simultaneously. That is what you did. That is what you did. And you know most of the Barbicians, they go to the airport. And you took it back from them. You took it back from them. Mr. Speaker, significantly increase salaries for government workers and all the categories. But Mr. Speaker, whose salary increased by 50%? Thirdly, immediately implement a phased reduction of VAT and the removal of VAT from food and other essential items. What did you do? VAT on light, VAT on water, VAT on education, VAT on health services, VAT on data. Man, you almost VAT dead people too. And we move on, Mr. Speaker. We move on, Mr. Speaker. Waiving of duties on fuel, tools, small-scale mining equipment. Waiving of taxes on small-scale mining equipment. What did they do, Mr. Speaker? VAT on machinery for mining, VAT on machinery for agriculture, VAT on machinery for logging. Failed, Mr. Speaker. And I go on, Mr. Speaker. Establishment of a national cane workers and cane farmers conference. Conference, not an association. A conference. Imagine that in a 100-day plan by this serious government. And you want Guyanese people to vote for you and you're promising them a conference. Man, we could do that in a day. We could do that in a half day. You need 100 days and you still couldn't do it. And they still couldn't do it. And they still couldn't do it. Mr. Speaker, I continue. Establishment of a national rice farmers and rice millers conference. Conference again. Mr. Speaker, these conferences, apparently these conferences was to use the taxpayers' money to fatten the AP and UFC. Mr. Speaker, I continue with these recommendations. I will only go through a few. Liberalization of the telecommunications sector. Mr. Speaker, there's another failed promise. It was done by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mark Phillips. The adoption of a long-term sustainable development plan to revitalize the vast potential of our country.
A plan to revitalize.
What a plan? Where is the plan? If there wasn't a plan, we didn't even see any implementation. Mr. Speaker, and this is what the AP and AFC was so good at. They were so good at organizing conferences. They were so good at doing feasibility studies, a study for this and a study for that and a study for that. They were so good about plans. But they failed on implementation, Mr. Speaker. They failed badly on implementation, and that is where the People's Progressive Party is doing and implementing the plans and the programs to ensure that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses prosper. So, Mr. Speaker, you cannot speak about the mismanagement in one way and then in the other way, oh, we have a lot of revenue now. Oh, you have oil money now. It simply means that we are managing our economy properly. It simply means that the natural resources sector is bringing in revenue into our country. The Honorable Ramjatan spoke at length about the new revenue and the amount of revenue that you have. But he failed to realize it is because of the prudent management of the resources and the economy that we are in a position that we are today. That is what he didn't say. It is not how much you have, it is how well you manage it. And that is what the APNU-AFC couldn't do. That is what you couldn't do. It is not how much you have, but it's how well you manage it. And look at the countries around the world. There are many countries with more oil reserves than Guyana. And they're in turmoil. People are flooding the countries because of starvation and turmoil. And they're coming to our countries because it is being managed properly. Because our resources are being managed properly and the revenue is being used to ensure that Guyanese have a better life. That is why the Honorable Member Ramjatan could complain about traffic. There was no traffic under the APNU-AFC because you can afford to buy a motor vehicle. What is the problem with the Honorable Member with having young people owning a motor vehicle? What is wrong with that? And you heard the figures from the Honorable Robson Ben, the amount of vehicles that are being registered in this country. And that is not by mistake. It is by design. It is by prudent management of the economy. It is ensuring that our people benefit from the resources of our country. It is ensuring that our people have more disposable income so that they can afford these amenities and needs and wants. That is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, while I spoke of the APNU-AFC 100-day promises, it is only fair too that I look at the accomplishment of the People's Progressive Party Civic in government, so that the people of this country can be the judge. Mr. Speaker, we can talk about the 28 years too. We can talk about the 28 years post-independence. We can talk about the rigged elections. We can talk about the underdevelopment in the hinterland communities. We can talk about when Amerindian citizens were second-class citizens in this country under the PNC government. We can talk about it. We can talk about the rundown infrastructure. We can talk about the high debts. We can talk about the fleeing of people from our country because they lost hope in the PNC and their country because of the dictatorship that existed. So we can talk about that. But I choose to speak about 2015 in all fairness. Honorable Member Vincent. So let us talk about our achievement and where our revenue is being channeled. It is being channeled and directed to ensure that people benefit, that our people benefit. And that is why we can complain here about traffic. Let the people then buy the vehicle. We will deal with that. We are building new highways. We are building new roads. Everyone deserves a better life. So what are our achievements, Mr. Speaker? 50,000 jobs. Promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. And yet, the Honorable Member Ramjatan will come to this National Assembly, 34 years of experience, and he was so proud of it. And it's a good achievement. It's a good achievement. But why would you come here and say that 15,000 Guyanese who are earning from the Pathway Workers Program is a slush fund? Why would you be so inconsiderate as a leader in this country to say that 15 ordinary Guyanese, mostly women who are benefit from the Pathway Program, is a slush fund? It is an insult to those women. It is an insult to those 15,000 Guyanese that you can come here and say it is a slush fund. Unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. Unacceptable coming from a man who just boasted of 34 years in Parliament. It is reckless. Mr. Speaker, 50,000 house lots, promise delivered. Promise delivered. Mr. Speaker, 20,000 scholarships, promise delivered. Mr. Speaker, double the old age pension in our first term in office, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, reinstate the Because We Care cash grant and increase it to $50,000, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, removing VAT on electricity and water that the APNU-AFC government instituted against our ordinary Guyanese people. The removal of VAT, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, new hospitals, new schools, new roadways, new highways, promise fulfilled. But yet we hear leaders, wannabe presidents, saying that we cannot eat roads. That is a reckless statement. That is a reckless statement. That is very inconsiderate as a man who wants to be the president in 2025. Can you tell the people in Borbies or in Linden or in Essequibo that their road is not important, that we should not build a road, that we should follow Honorable L. Cox and give them the $1 million gas grant, and they're going to walk in the mud dam that they used to do all the years? Mr. Speaker, the people of this country is benefiting from our infrastructure program, and we will continue to build out our infrastructure program. Mr. Speaker, 2025 budget as presented by our Honorable Minister, Dr. Ashni Singh, and his hard-working staff at the Ministry of Finance, with guidance from the President, Vice President, and the Prime Minister, is a budget that balances infrastructure development with pro-people measures. With pro-people measures, Mr. Speaker, because we need to continue building out our infrastructure because none existed. None existed. Imagine we are doing so many roads in Linden, and you were in power from 2015 to 2020. Linden is known to be your strong support base. How many roads did you build in Linden? None. How many roads did you build in Amsterdam? None. And then the honorable member Ramjitan said this morning that during 2015 to 2020, the streets of Georgetown were so clean and beautiful, and there were no mosquitoes. A Barbician saying that. And that now the streets of Georgetown are filthy and there are so many mosquitoes. But the honorable member failed to realize that the APNU-AFC is controlling the city council. We don't run the city council. Give us so we can run it. You are controlling the city council. So it is a direct sabotage. It is a sabotage by the PNC, the city council. Because why is it that the roads going to be cleaned in 2015, 2020, but you can't clean it now? And I want the citizens of Georgetown to know that it is a sabotage by the city council. You're playing politics with the lives of people. You are playing politics with the citizens of this country. It will not be tolerated by the people. And we will see that in the 2025 general elections. Mr. Speaker, permit me to continue with our great sheet here. Free university education, promise fulfilled. Toll-free bridges, promise fulfilled. And if you're Barbicians, some of you are Barbicians, you will know that one of the best things that ever happened to Barbicians, like my friend Honorable Man Jai Prashad, he will tell you if he's honest enough, that the best thing ever happened to Barbies was the Barbies Bridge. Because if you experience like I did, the hardship of crossing the Torani and Makuria, you would know that it was a blessing. Like my friend Adasha Singh Lewis too. You would understand, like my classmate Gita, you would understand the hardship. You would understand the hardship. And it is a further blessing, Mr. Speaker, that this year the Barbies River Bridge will be toll-free. Will be toll-free. This, Mr. Speaker, will boost economic activities in Region 6. The honorable member spoke about migration in Region 6, but why don't he give us the figures where they're migrating to? They're coming right here too. They're going to Region 6, they're going to Region 10, Region 2. They're going to work in hinterland communities. His policy or his thinking of migration is America. Once you left Barbados, you gone America. That is not the only form of migration. Many of them are in Georgetown. Many of them are in Georgetown. They're coming back. Many of them are in Georgetown, and many of them are returning too. That is what you need to do. That is what you need to do a survey on as well. How many of them are returning, and how many more will come? Mr. Speaker, so having a toll-free Barbados bridge will bring significant benefits to the people in Region 6 and Guyana at large. Mr. Speaker, who would have think that we would have seen that magnificent structure across the Demerara River going up? Who would have thought that we would have seen that in our lifetime? We are seeing a brand new high-rise 4-lane Demerara Harbour Bridge, soon to be completed, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, and I continue, new stadium and sports facilities, promise fulfilled. Reopening of sugar estates to create employment for our people, promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. It is not about right sizing, as you say it, or whatever. It is about the lives of people, and that is what is important. You will come here and you will criticize the money that we are using to recapitalize the sugar industry, but it is more than that. It is about people. It is about their children. It is about their livelihood. That is what we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it hurts to listen to the achievements, especially if you're on the opposing side.
Well, you heard me right now.
Mr. Speaker, the revival of the Guyana Forestry Commission and the forestry sector will tell you that is state for the Forestry Commission. They were basically bankrupt in 2020. The staff weren't paid, the NIS dues were not paid, the insurance was not paid, the light bill was not paid, the phone bill was not paid. And you would know that, Honorable, you were a board member at that time. You were a board member at that time. Today we have transformed the forestry sector. That it is recognized that Guyana is recognized as having one of the best forest management systems in the world, with one of the lowest deforestation in the world. And the honorable member spoke glowingly about the low carbon development strategy. Well, you need to read that document properly. You need to read that document properly, and you would realize that we are well ahead. We are well ahead of many countries, Mr. Speaker. And what is important to note, Mr. Speaker, is Guyana has become a model country in this world. A model country in terms of economic development versus environmental sustainability. Guyana is recognized for that worldwide, Mr. Speaker. And as all Guyanese, regardless where we sit, we must be proud of that achievement. We must be proud of that achievement. Regardless of political affiliation, it is about patriotism. It is about patriotism. We have one of the best model among developing countries with regards to balancing economic development with environmental sustainability. And even though the forestry sector employs over 25,000 Guyanese, and we're actively involved in harvesting and production, we still have one of the lowest deforestation rate in the world. We have one of the most pristine forests in the world, which is an asset to us. Guyana is the only country that has signed on to the EU Forest Partnership Agreement, to the voluntary partnership agreement with the EU, so that we can be the second country in the world that will be FLET certified. We are one of the few countries in the world that our forest is PEFC certified. That is to show sustainability and legality and traceability for our wood and wood products. That is what we have returned the Forestry Commission to under the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration in just 4 years. In just 4 years. So we might come and say that yes, in 2020 or 2021, production was low. But we failed to realize that we were going through a major global pandemic when we took over government. But why didn't we move on and say in 2022 it increased, in 2023 it increased, in 2024 production increased in the forestry sector? We might come and say the export revenue has declined. But Mr. Speaker, we have a massive developmental agenda in this country, both public and private, and we need to satisfy the local demand first and foremost. First and foremost before we seek external markets, and that is what the Forestry Commission has been doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and as I continue, revival of the bauxite sector.
For you to continue, you'll need an extension, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the honourable member be granted an extension of 5 minutes to complete his presentation.
Thank you, PM. Honorable Minister, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, PM. Mr. Speaker, and I continue our report card so that the people of this country can know what are the achievements. Reduction in electricity rates through the gas energy project. Promise fulfilled, Mr. Speaker. The opposition will come here. There's a 2025 budget. It will be fulfilled in 2025. We are debating a 2025 budget. We are debating a 2025 budget, Mr. Speaker, and these achievements will be fulfilled in the year 2025. So it is easy to come and criticize a project that will transform the lives and people of this country. It is easy to come here and ask for studies and studies. Go, we can take you and you can see the implementation of the project. We can show you the pipeline coming in. We can show you the turbines that are already in country while you are still looking for a feasibility study. Mr. Speaker, and I can continue, but I know my time is running short. So I'll just stop at the last one.
You still have 4.5.
I will stop at the last one. And I'm sure my friend Maipa would laugh. Another achievement under the People's Progressive Party civic government, the CPL trophy. And we won it. And we won it. See, you get excited about that. Mr. Speaker, we would have listened to many speakers. We would have listened to many speakers before us spoke glowingly of their recommendations, of their fake promises. But sometimes when we come to the House, we need to be honest. We need to be honest. And when the Honorable Robson Man was speaking, he said that many of the members sitting in the opposition, I think you're about 5 or 6 now, who were in the last cabinet, that you sat there when the government made decisions to remove the cash grant for children, to add VAT on electricity, and importantly, you sat there when the PSA, the production sharing agreement for the Stabroek block, was being discussed and agreed on. You sat there and you agreed to it. You sat there and you agreed to it. You agreed that the oil company will not pay any tax. You agreed to that. But yet we have politicians in the opposition who are trying to play Tom and Jerry, Mr. Speaker. Cat and mouse game. And I listened to the Honorable Sherwin Ola. I listened to the Honorable Sherwin Ola, even though he was going at such a rapid pace, reading out his AI-generated speech. He never said, and he never committed to the renegotiation of the Stabroek block. And if you didn't listen, you can check on the answer. He said that we will review the PSA of the Stabroek block. He never said that they're going to renegotiate the agreement of the Stabroek block. Because I listened. And again, you're trying to fool the Guyanese people. Again, you're trying to hoodwink the Guyanese people. But people, again, you're trying to mislead the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, when we took over in 2020, we sought to build out the framework to manage the oil and gas sector, and to manage the oil and gas sector in such a manner that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses can benefit. And today we are seeing that. We took a bold step as a small oil producing country, as a small developing nation, to pass a local content legislation when many countries would have stopped at a local content policy. We took that brave step. And why did we do it, Mr. Speaker? To ensure that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses can benefit from the sector. So much today that we have over 1,500 small Guyanese businesses registered in local content secretariat. We have almost 7,000 Guyanese directly employed in the oil and gas sector. We are building out the training center in Port Morant to ensure that young Guyanese can be trained and employed in the oil and gas sector directly. Mr. Speaker, we talk about revenue, but we could remember the 29th of December 2021, when the mace was on the threat, when his house was in Ruckus, because we didn't want the Natural Resource Fund, which speaks to proper accountability and transparency in the oil and gas sector, and to ensure that we manage it so that people can benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, I know my time is running short, and I'll have another opportunity next week to go further into the sector. But, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to thank the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ashley Singh, for year after year producing budgets that balance infrastructural development, economic development with environmental sustainability and pro-poor measures, so that our people can benefit from the revenue in our country. So I want to thank the Minister and his staff, with guidance, as I mentioned, from His Excellency, from the Vice President, from the Prime Minister, and Mr. Speaker, it will be unjust for me if I leave without thanking my very own staff from the Ministry of Natural Resources and its agencies. I wish to commend Budget 2025 for unanimous passage through this House. Thank you.